I wanted to learn about the financial end of things and all that goes into a mortgage. And so I became a lender to do my own deals, cut the fat out, save some money, then started working with friends and referrals, and then the business began to build up from there.
This is the Power Moves for Business Growth podcast, presented by Gulfside Business Solutions, where stories and strategies meet to fuel your growth. At GBS, we bring together expertise in financing, strategy, marketing, tax, legal, and business operations, all to help you make the power moves that drive lasting success. Join us as we explore real-world insights and powerful moves from leaders, partners, and innovators shaping business growth today.
Welcome to the Power Moves for Business podcast, brought to you by Gulfside Business Solutions. My name is Joe Austin. I'm the owner of CJA Business Strategy. My co-host is the Chief Brand Officer for Gulfside Business Solutions. That's Mr. Herb Johnson. We'll hear from him in just a minute. Josh John is experienced in the lending industry. He's currently with USA United Home Loans. Josh has a knack for creativity and problem solving in lending. He's going to give us some insight into that. Just overall insight for anyone that's interested in the real estate world, in the lending world, how to make their money work better for them. Josh, welcome to Power Moves.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Josh, thank you for being here as well. Could you start just by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you're at as far as, I know you have a wife and a couple of kids. I know you've got a successful real estate business as well as lending business, and just kind of give us just a brief summary of that, just so our listeners know you.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, and my uncle started me in the real estate career at the ripe young age of 19. He was the GM of a company and a brokerage, and he gave me the opportunity to become a licensed agent and start working with investors. So within my first couple of weeks, I sold a couple of houses, and he said, here's a contract, here's a blank contract, here's a filled out contract, you figure it out. So it was a crash course of learning. And then eventually got into property management, project management, investing, flipping. And then I wanted to learn about the financial end of things and all that goes into a mortgage. And so I became a lender to do my own deals, cut the fat out, save some money, then started working with friends and referrals. And then the business began to build up from there. So,
Josh, I'm a real estate investor, so I've been looking forward to doing this episode with you. I'll just put my cards on the table, so I'm going to be, hitting you up for some things to, help me as well as everybody else. I'm invested in single family and multifamily. So yeah, I'm looking for insider info. In your opinion, which strategies beyond the traditionals, like the single family, multifamily, what's lucrative today? What other strategies are out there? I know there's flipping, you already mentioned, short-term rentals, maybe it's something else. What's your insight?
yeah, real estate is a long-term gain, and it's a good way to kind of build long-term wealth and build appreciation, but it's not a whole lot of cash flow. You don't get a lot of cash flow unless you buy the property cash. If you're financing it, you might make a couple $100 a month. So if you want quick cash in the real estate realm, I would highly suggest something along the lines of, depending on where you're at, how much funds you have, wholesaling is very lucrative. It's $0. You're basically selling contracts to others. You get a seller, you get a buyer, and then you make money on the assignments. There's also good money to make if you have a bunch of cash to work with. You can become a hard money lender and basically be able to double your money every 5 to 6 years. And that's just getting paired up with other real estate investors who have deals where there's enough meat on the bone and you get a high interest rate, and you could get a chunk of that deal just by sitting back and using your funds.
Yeah, you mentioned cash flow being down right now. I'm experiencing that with interest rates being high, insurance costs being high, repair costs being high. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that in the things I'm invested in, both in single family and multifamily, the cash flow being lower. So yeah, those are some good strategies. I haven't gotten into those, and I need to learn more. But yeah, the hard money lending is something I've heard about, so I'll definitely do some more research into that. Wholesaling is probably a little more difficult to get into. Like, what are the barriers of entry to get into wholesaling?
Yeah, so I'm actually part of a group, Ryan Pineda, if you've ever heard of him. He's a young real estate guru. He's started multiple 7 and 8 figure businesses, and he has a team through his one of his projects, and I think there's about 1,400 wholesalers on there. It's called a Wealthy Investor. And yeah, the best thing to do is just to get paired up with someone who already has a CRM, has all the resources that you need. They give you warm leads, and you just kind of pay a monthly fee, and you're good to go if you want to just start from scratch. So it's just another source of income, one of the multiple.
Sure. Yeah.
Put the wholesaling idea on the bottom shelf for people that haven't dabbled in real estate or don't have condos in Hawaii like my humble friend here. Just tell us a little bit about how that works, the wholesaling part. I understand the process, but like for the average person that's listening, average business owner that's wanting to diversify a little bit away from his business right now, how would he do that?
Sure. Yeah. You could go in, you could get your hands dirty and do the work yourself, or you can hire a VA and have them train. But with Ryan Pineda's group, they have coaching calls. So let's say you wanted to start, you want to pay the monthly fee, have very minimal risk. You just hire a VA. A lot of VAs from the Philippines are great. Their English is phenomenal. And so what they do is they take these warm leads that come in through the company, usually through Facebook ads. They do the Facebook ads. We want to buy your house. And then someone clicks onto it, submits their information, gives the property address. And then your VA or yourself can respond to that warm lead. And you basically, let's say you buy the contract for 200,000, you put $100 down, very minimal risk. And sometimes you don't put any money down until you have a deal. And then you could sell that contract for 250,000. It's very negotiable. The average wholesaling fee is currently $15,000. So there's enough meat on the bone for everybody. And you could even get into what's called novation. If you have a seller that wants top dollar, you could purchase the contract for, get it in writing for a certain amount of money, and then put it on the MLS. You don't have to use a real estate agent. There's multiple companies that you could just put it on the MLS through. They list it for you, and you could get top dollar. So the seller wins, the buyer wins, and then the wholesaler wins. So there's enough meat on the bone for everybody.
For the average business owner, can I hire somebody to do that? Do you have a
Yeah,
business that does that? Better question.
absolutely. Yeah. You can have it under one of your businesses, create an LLC. There's certain legalities to it all, but sure, you can have a VA handle everything for you, and you can make the money. If you do one a month, that's about 180,000 a year. So
Okay.
it's pretty lucrative.
Growing your business doesn't stop when this episode does. That's why Gulfside Business Solutions and CJA Business Strategy offer webinars to help you grow your leads, sales, revenue, and profits. This isn't a lecture. This is an interactive session where we're going to help you grow your business. To learn more and to register, go to gulfsidebusinesssolutions.com/webinars. Now, back to Power Moves.
All right. Let's flip a little bit and go to the lending side. I have a background in lending, just as you do, and tell me a little bit about what's working best now for the real estate investors like Joe. What type of loans? If I'm a business owner, a lot of times I'll be set up in a way to where I'm trying to minimize taxes so I don't show a ton of income and this, that, and the other, which then makes it tough when you go to get a loan, right? You're smiling because you've experienced it probably, but it's the way it is. And so
That's it.
how do we circumvent that? What's the best way to, without fraud, obviously?
Sure. Yeah. The first thing you say when you talk about taxes and saving money on taxes, the cost segregation study, if you could get one of those, you can accelerate the appreciation substantially and save a lot on taxes. And I'm no tax professional, but that's a great way, that the wealthy can save money on taxes. And, for investors that are serious, anyone who's very serious and you want to scale, DSCR is the way to go. Debt service coverage ratio, as long as the rents cover the mortgage and then some. Usually the banks want to see 1.1%, so a little bit of cash flow there to cover for vacancy and, repairs. I would say DSCR is the way to go, especially if you want to scale. You don't have to show tax returns, which is very easy for someone who doesn't like to pay taxes, right? We don't,
Yeah.
none of us, we're not taking advantage of the legal system, but we're just
Actually, we are.
using
Yeah.
catch code.
Actually, we are taking advantage of the legal system. That's the whole point, I think.
Yes, the attached.
Right. And so if you're taking full advantage of that and you're keeping your taxes minimized, this DSCR loan, how does that work? Tell our listeners how that works.
So you purchase a property. Let's just say you're purchasing a duplex, and the rents are $2,000 a month. Even if one is vacant, that's fine. The appraiser could base it off of market value. So let's just say you have a duplex, $2,000 a month, and then the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, the whole amount would be, say, $1,800. Well, the bank will look at that and they'll say, okay, there's enough money here to cover the debt service. So it's a debt service coverage ratio. And again, as long as that's over 1.1%, when you divide the two together, the bank will usually be willing to lend.
Do you package things for people that, say, a business owner, and he doesn't have a tremendous amount of time to do this or to learn it, but as a lender, he comes to you, he tells you what he's trying to do. You can actually maybe package it for him and say, this is what you need to do, and then he can go out and bring it back to you. Is that something you do?
Yes, absolutely. I like to work with each borrower in their specific situation, and we really have a bunch of lenders that we work with. So we like to cater the deal specifically to the lender, whatever that deal is. Certain borrowers just want a great interest rate. Certain borrowers want less money down, so we definitely can package that and make it nice and simplified for them.
What about for the capitalistic pigs like me that wants great interest rate, low money down, and no tax return documentation? How does that work?
Well, you're in the right field. You're in the right field to do that, Do those cost segs and get your taxes nice and low. No money down, that's great. That's, was it Dutch Sheets or Carlton Sheets?
Carlton Sheets, it used to be, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going back a ways now. Yeah.
That's one of the first books I've ever read. So often I've seen HUD statements where there's all these closing cost credits. You see someone buying a building, right? It's a multifamily building. You look down at the bottom, usually on the left-hand side, it says, cash due to borrower or how much the borrower has to pay.
Right.
And when, you see these buildings they're purchasing and they get tens of thousands of dollars back, you got to think, what's different about this deal? And so what I've often seen is you get a lot of closing cost credits. There's negotiations after home inspections. There's negotiations after final walkthroughs. You get those closing cost credits so that you can, minimize your down payment, and then you could seller finance the down payment in a lot of states here. So that's a great way to come in and not only not pay any money down, but get cash back in your pocket and cash flowing asset.
Right. If you have a business that's going and generating money and you're wanting to do this as like a side hustle, or even if you're like a W-2 employee and you're wanting to okay, how am I going to build wealth over time? This sounds like a great way to do that with minimal risk if you do it right.
I have to agree with you there. Yes.
And if you 100%. Do it wrong, it's a nightmare. Do you agree?
Say that again?
And if you do it wrong, it's a nightmare.
That's right. Yeah, but you learn by your mistakes, and that's how I've learned.
You do, then you lose your hair, and that's never a good thing. So if somebody comes to you early in life, they can keep their hair and make money.
That's what it's all about. I should make that the next cliche. Keep your hair, keep your money.
That's right. That's right. Don't stress over it. Well, I think a little bit. I got up to 51 rental units at one point in life, and had professional property managers and all that kind of stuff. But I wish I'd have met somebody like you early on. I think I'd probably still be in real estate heavily.
It's never too late. Yeah. If you want to get back in, there's a lot of ways to get back in. But it sounds like you're doing pretty well with your other businesses. So, you might not need to do any extra unless you need more tax write-offs.
No, I'm good there. Good there.
There are more power moves to be made, and we're going to help you. Right now, Gulfside Business Solutions is offering all of their business strategy books free of charge. This includes the Power Moves book, 2 business strategy books from me at CJA Business Strategy, and a marketing strategy book from our friends at Tylerica Marketing Systems. This offer might not last, so get your free resources now. Go to gulfsidebusinesssolutions.com/resources. Now, back to the show. Josh, I like that we're getting into the creativity and the way you approach. Like Herb said, you're a great asset because you're creativity and problem solving. Other than DSCR, give us another strategy or another loan product or just another way that folks can think beyond just the norm of how they can do real estate financing.
Sure. Let's just say if someone wants to get into fix and flip loans, you can come in with as little as 10% down. They'll fund the deal. We'll fund the deal and we'll fund the entire rehab project. And that's a good way to get into the BRRRR. So, after the refinance, the rehab, and the rental, you can, you rent it, refinance, and repeat, right? So that's a good way to get in with very little money down, and you could get that 10% back when you refinance into the deal. And some of these mastermind groups that you join, like Investor Fuel and GC, they have lenders that they work with who can do 100% financing on their fix and flip loans. So not only do they fund literally the entire deal, you just pay a little bit of closing costs. They fund the entire project, and then you could still do the BRRRR with very little money out of pocket. So I like that for the kind of the short term gain, and then the long term would be if you buy and hold. But sub 2 is a fun thing to get into. I did my first subject to deal February of last year. It was one of those ready, fire, aim moments where you fire before you aim and you see how far off on the target you are. Well, I was pretty far off, but it was a good learning experience on my first sub 2. Then my next one in Texas was great. And then the third one in Texas was great. And then you just learn how to structure it. But with the subject 2, you have 2 instruments on the purchase of a house. You have the deed and you have the mortgage. Well, a good way to beat the interest rates nowadays is to take on an existing mortgage that someone has. It's not an assumable, where you literally just mirror that mortgage of theirs and take on their 3.5% loan interest and take over the deed of the property. So you're inheriting their rights, but the best way to do it really is to purchase it through a trust, not through an LLC like I did on my first one. You want to do it through a land trust.
Right. Back in the day, that was typically like a land contract kind of deal, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right.
You've been doing it for a while. You're using the terms.
Last time we talked, you had properties in Florida, Texas, and in New York, right?
That's right.
Is that right? Is that still the case?
Yes, it is. Yes, I have some multifamilies in New York. I have those waterfront condos there, in our beautiful community there in Sunrise Landing, and yes, have some single family newer build houses in Texas. So,
tell me how faith has come to play in what you do, especially in business, and how that bleeds over into your personal life, how you conduct yourself, how you think, all that.
Yeah, it was the late, great Kobe Bryant who mentioned that God is great, God is everything. And, that just kind of, when you work for God, he sets the bar high because we're not working onto, our bosses or even ourselves and our own, if we're our own bosses. We're working unto God, and he sets the standard. And he gives us that love and joy and peace and patience that we so greatly need in this line of work.
Yes.
And kindness, so those are just attributes, and the integrity, when you say you're going to do something, I'll have this by 5:00. It might be 5:05, but I'll get it to you around 5:00. Just having that integrity and keeping your word. And then the peace that surpasses all understanding in the midst of the chaos, because so often it's just ridiculously chaotic, dealing with these large battles. Usually when it rains, it pours, right? So
Correct.
A lot comes at you at once, and you have that peace that surpasses all understanding in the middle of it, which is great because the Holy Spirit really strengthens and enables us to do all things through Christ who gives us strength.
Great. I want to jump off the just a little bit here. Were you in real estate back like in 2007, 8?
I sure was.
Sure
I sure
was.
was.
Tell me about that. Tell
That
me,
was
tell
an
me
interesting.
how that maybe did faith play a role in that? Or is that when you found faith maybe? I don't know. I'm just
Mm.
asking.
That's a good one. Yeah, faith and trusting in God for His provision, because that's when I was doing real estate then in 2007, 2008. Yeah, it was just about graduating college and really trusting in His provision, because I had this lifestyle of what I was earning before that. And
Right.
so I had the fancy place downtown New York. I had the nice car and the motorcycle and all the things. But then I had to continue to make those payments in addition to the school loans. So yeah, that did develop a lot of trust in God, and it was a great learning experience through that. And Yeah, there's a lot of faith involved for sure.
Okay. Very good.
Tell our audience how they can find you. They want to have you be their lender. They want to, have you consult them on what they're thinking about doing. How can they connect?
Sure, you could go to usaunitedhomeloans.com, or you could email me at josh@usaunitedhl.com. Those are the two best ways to reach me. And no, I'd love to help you out, even if it's just a quick conversation over the phone to get you set up for the future. Happy to help you out.
Cool.
So the most important thing you shared today was about your faith. But now let's do what I think is the most fun thing about the show. We don't wrap until our guest makes us laugh. So what do you got?
All right. So I am a dad, and I do have some dad jokes.
Yes.
Maybe we'll do two and you pick the best one, or whatever.
No,
you
we're going to
like.
put both in.
This
Yep,
is
we're doing
great.
both.
This is great.
All right. So why did the borrower bring a ladder to the bank?
I don't know.
I give up.
Because their rates were through the roof. Okay, not so good. Not so good.
That's like both. That's a dad joke and the lender joke.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yes. Okay, why did the borrower break up with the lender?
Come on, Joe.
I don't
I
know.
got nothing.
Because he wanted more space with less interest.
Oh, you brought it. Nice. You tied it into your expertise.
Yeah,
The bar has been set.
It
Well
has.
done. Josh, thank you so much for joining us on Power Moves, sharing some really, really high-level insight on real estate and investing. Thank you also to our audience. We hope that we brought you at least one power move that you can apply in your business, in your investing, in your personal life. And until our next episode, God bless.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the Power Moves for Business Growth podcast, presented by Gulfside Business Solutions. If you enjoyed today's conversation, follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with someone making their next big move. Learn more about how GBS helps businesses grow at gulfsidebusinesssolutions.com. Until next time, keep making the power moves that fuel your growth.